Oh, okay.
We
Right, yeah.
which all things considered shouldn't be too long now, a couple years maybe,
Good.
but anything.
Is this it?
Hanging up things, moving stuff.
Is this it right here? This marriage communication.
Don't leave him hanging. Poor guy.
That sounds good.
You.
Yeah.
There he is.
Don,
Good, good.
Don going to Eastern Games?
We'll see.
I think Vince.
We're doing.
No, they did not.
You watched the.
Northern Arizona. They were flat.
Well, they were missing the. Perfect.
Yeah,
I don't know if they heard or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, we got some time.
Last night watching again.
At least they don't see, they never pay.
Yeah.
Never pay.
I don't know if I.
Always. Like they just know,
Go fast enough if it gets enough
give
lift.
it some more time. We'll beat you.
Well, they're very like. Just.
Oh, they're methodical.
God, that's just.
Yeah. And mostly it's bang miss, bang miss, bang miss, bang miss,
Build anything in there. I know.
or turnover. Yeah. I'm not impressed with them here at all.
I don't know,
I mean, they could,
maybe the 9 seed will be good.
yeah, sure.
They're always.
Yeah.
Top 5.
Yeah. I mean, they could maybe get hot. The problem is they're shooting. They just, they're so streaky. They're not consistent shooters.
They don't.
They don't.
Years past, they've always had the.
Yeah.
K's the guy. He's not GK.
He's not. And he's also not always like, hey, we're gonna drop the ball in there. He's gonna either make a shot or he's gonna kick it out. We don't know what to do. It's not like that.
Cause even when they had Timmy, they always had some shooters too.
Yep. He could kick it to anybody and they could make a shot. That's what so, the challenge. For sure. So we'll see. Is it on right now?
6.
Oh. Well, that'll be interesting. Should have set my DVR.
Call to order a regular city council meeting for March 11th, 2025. Please join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Roll call. Billy,
Honorable Mayor Grover,
present.
Councilmember Overhauser. Present. Councilmember Schmidt,
Present.
Councilmember Bartels.
Present.
Councilmember Bebop,
Present.
Councilmember Nazaro,
Present.
Councilmember Labar,
Go ahead.
and Councilmember Postuma.
President.
Thank you. And I do have a request to excuse Councilmember Labar for this evening's
So moved.
meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second to excuse Councilmember Labar from today's meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. She's excused. Wonderful. Okay, moving on. This is an opportunity for citizens to provide comment to our city council. I did have two people that signed up today, and the first one is Gunther Zarth. Come on up, Gunther. Please state your name and your address for the record, please. And you can stand right up here to that mic. We can all hear you.
1018 First Street, apartment 2, here in Cheney.
Thank you. Floor is yours, sir.
Well, I'm here to present a proposal for a bike path southbound on Cheney Spangle Road. And I have a full color multi-page description. If I may hand it out to you folks.
Sure, yeah.
Danielle already has her copy. Thank you. One for you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I have a total of 7. I don't know if
That's okay. I can get one from, I can get one from our city administrator.
Danielle has her ready.
Thank you.
Zach,
Thank you.
this is my copy. So the idea is to create a mirror image of the existing bike path. There's one already that comes from the Columbia Plateau Trail into town. So what I'd like to see is a duplicate on the other side. And the only, as you'll see in the pictures, from the Grove to the bridge past Dave's Auto, there's already a good width of pavement. What's really needed is to just cover the gravel that's on the edge of the pavement. And my concern with the gravel is, I explained in the proposal, but my concern is that if an inexperienced cyclist accidentally gets into the gravel, they're likely to overreact
Sure.
and go, oh, and shoot themselves into traffic. So widening that path, the major construction that I foresee is by Dave's Auto to do a mirror image of the ramp that goes from the path to the road. So, and I think that should be able to be funded by infrastructure funds, I would think.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm not sure what else to explain about it.
No, that's perfect. And I appreciate that you've done your homework here and provided a solution to a
Full color
potential
pictures
problem.
with,
So
with arrows and numbers.
we'll take this under consideration. Thank you so much for bringing it to our attention. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you. And thanks for providing your contact information there too. Rebecca Long, come on up, Rebecca. As always, state your name and your address for the record, please.
Hi, folks. So I think many of you already know me. I'm Rebecca Long, 30 North 7th Street here in Cheney. And I wanted to comment on the flock resolution that's up for, I think, approval tonight. I was looking through the documents that were posted online, and I didn't really see anything that was in there that addressed some of the concerns that were raised at the last meeting. And so I just wanted to kind of call that out, and I'd like to encourage that the city consider adopting some of the recommendations that the ACLU has put forward on specifically like data retention and access. So some of those items include reducing the data retention to like the bare minimum that's needed. So right now it looks like what I saw online was it's still at the default of 30 days of retention, which seems very unnecessary and kind of questionable. So ACLU recommends lowering that to whatever we can get away with. And then restricting access to the footage to be only like our law enforcement, or to really clearly and explicitly call out who has access, why, and when they would be granted access to that information. And then adding restrictions also on where our data from the flock camera system can be run against other databases, like who else has access to that data, like what are we comparing it with? I just don't want to see that this data be used against our own community or wrongfully used to detain residents or visitors here within Cheney. So I realize that we're moving forward with this, and I think it is what it is, but whatever we can do to help add to the contract with Flock that protects our citizens, protects our privacy is what I'm asking for. So thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate that. Anybody, that's all that signed up. Anybody else in the crowd that wishes to provide comment? Anybody joining us virtually just to provide comment? Going once, going twice. Okay, we will move on to, and thank you for those that that provided comment to our council today. You've had an opportunity to look at to review our February 25th regular city council meeting minutes. If there's no changes to that, I'd accept a motion to approve them.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve our February 25th meeting minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. Minutes are approved. Vouchers and payroll. Cindy.
Thank you, Your Honor. Although I told you we were done with 2024, we have a few more still. So the rest of our 2024 expenses were $29,514.84. Our 2025 vouchers were $1,239,379.78. Our interdepartmental utility building was $35,521.34 for a total of $1,274,901.12. And our payroll was $1,252,524.40.
Your Honor, Finance Committee reviewed these items. I would move for approval of the 2024 vouchers, please.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the 2024 vouchers as presented. Any questions for Cindy? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. 2024 vouchers are approved.
And Your Honor, I would also move approval of the 2025 vouchers and current payroll.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second to approve the 2025 vouchers as presented and payroll totals. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you, Cindy. Your vouchers and payroll are approved. Once again, we don't have any claims for damages, which is a good thing. There's no small contracts since last meeting. We do have an information item on the 2025 to 2027 Police Guild Collective Bargaining Tentative Agreement. Mr. Schuler.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to present a tentative agreement with the Cheney Police Guild for their 2025 to 2027 contract. Just to get into kind of the spirit of things, just some challenges and opportunities when it comes to staffing a policing organization these days. We are definitely in a very difficult labor market. There is significant competition for good police officers. Every policing agency in this area and probably across our state is actively hiring for police officers. So we are competing with pretty much everybody else. I'll have a slide later on. We're going to talk a little bit about this legislative session and potential for future funding of public safety. But just some of the additional challenges that we face. There's always lack of space in the CJTC Academy classes. So sometimes there's delays if we have an entry-level type officer that needs to go through the academy. So oftentimes we try to look for laterals because we'd like to get boots on the ground as quickly as possible. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the next few slides. This contract in specifics is trying to help with our turnover and trying to retain the good officers that we've invested a lot of time and effort and resources into. And one of the things to help with that is opportunities for specialty assignments. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in the presentation. But as far as the 2025 legislative session, there are still 3 bills that are in play right now. House Bill 2015, that is creating a local taxing option. It's a councilmatic 10% sales tax authority for funding criminal justice. If you implement this tax, then you are able to apply for grant funding to help retain, recruit, and train officers. This bill was actually heard on the floor today, and there were some amendments done to it, which I haven't had a chance to go through yet. So I'll be anxious to see what they've done to it. Senate Bill 5060, this is the governor's bill. He ran on a platform of providing additional funding to increase the number of law enforcement officers in the state. So this is $100 million in grants for hiring law enforcement officers. The issue with this bill is it's one-time funding, so it'll pay for you to get them through academy, for basically 3 years worth of their time, and then you're on your own to fund them. And so Association of Washington Cities and a number of cities have said, look, we thank you for committing to try to help us get more officers on the streets, but it needs to be a sustainable funding source because a lot of us can't afford a lot of these things going forward. That watching the public hearing, that they heard the same spiel from every agency and all the other lobbyists and things as they heard that bill. That one is actually waiting for Senate floor debate scheduling. And then the final one, Senate Bill 5775. This would expand the existing public safety sales tax authority, making it councilmatic and increasing the amount of local government can impose. That was actually heard on the floor today too, and it was amended as well. So I'm not sure what they did with that one. So that'll be probably the first thing I do tomorrow. Let's kind of look and see what's been done. The most disappointing thing up there you'll see in yellow is House Bill 1428. This was a bill to increase the funding for the Municipal Criminal Justice Assistance Account, basically going to make a significant contribution. And the great thing about this bill was it was a sustainable funding source. This is one that had a very broad scope of things that you could fund: personnel, programs, equipment, all those things. Unfortunately, that one died in the House Appropriations Committee, didn't make it out. So that one is now off the table. Just some information about our guild, the makeup of our guild. Back in 2023, I presented that our average years of service was 6.19. If I look at our current officers in 2025, it's 6.76. So we have a little more years of service. However, this number is going to change as we have some new officers that will be hired by the end of the month. So they'll skew those numbers down a bit. So just getting into more detail on the recruitment challenges, the applicant pools in the region are weak. If we get a handful of applicants for an opening, it's a good thing because there's other agencies around that are getting 1s and 2s. And the ones that are applying, probably aren't the quality that these entities are looking for. The applicants, as I mentioned earlier, have lots of choices. There's a lot of agencies that are hiring. City of Spokane, Spokane County, Spokane Airport, Airway Heights, everybody's hiring. So we've been lucky enough to hire 2 laterals, both from the Spokane County Sheriff's Office in the past 12 months. And we will, by the end of the month, we'll be hiring 2 additional ones, one from Tacoma and one that had some experience with the Kennewick Police Department. So we've been somewhat lucky in that regard. And I think it's the reputation that our department has gained. We have professional police officers. We have a professional policing agency, and I think people want to be a part of it. We had 2 entry-level police officers that we brought on that didn't make it through their FTO and probation. Unfortunately, they got through the academy, but bringing them on board, one of them just said policing isn't for me, and the other one just simply didn't kind of cut the mustard in terms of performance. So just full transparency, just want to give everybody kind of an accurate picture of kind of where we are with our staffing. The contract you see before you tonight, I think is critical to attracting and retaining officers. We have heard from several other officers and other agencies that they would certainly be willing to consider coming to Cheney if we can get the compensation benefit stuff right. And I think that's what this contract does. If we look at our comparables, and this is for the top step of the wage progression for the officers, this is kind of how we stack up. Sorry, this is a little bit small, but honestly, we're not going to ever compete with the City of Spokane. What they pay is astronomical. Spokane County Sheriffs, they're a little bit under what our proposed would be, but they have some other pays like their longevity and education incentives that jumps up from anywhere from 2% to near 10%. So they've got some additional compensation that's not reflected in their base pay. You can see what Pullman pays. Liberty Lake's made some pretty significant adjustments over the years. We used to pay more than them, but you can see they're investing in their police officers. Ellensburg, they've got a very lucrative sort of benefits package. So their officers don't pay as much in terms of their benefits. So while their base wage is a little lower than our proposed would be, they've got some other, if you're looking at total compensation, they stack up pretty well with us. Eastern's another one that's investing heavily in their police officers. Effective 7/1 of 2025, that'll be their top step wage. So basically over the 2025 and 2026 years, they're going to increase by about 15%. Eastern has committed to trying to retain their officers as well. For a number of years, they were hemorrhaging people. As soon as they, sort of met the lateral criteria, they used Eastern as a training ground and jumped to other agencies. But with Eastern, what they're compensating now, I think they're able to better retain some of their officers, although we have taken a couple of them. Spokane Airport Police, you can see where they stack up. But if you notice the billboard on 904 in Cheney, they're recruiting and they're providing a $25,000 signing bonus for laterals. County is also providing a $25,000 signing bonus for laterals as well, and they're actually even given a $10,000 signing bonus for entry level. So those are the things that we're competing with. So the priorities as we went into negotiations on the guild side of things, they certainly want to stabilize staffing. They want to retain their folks. They don't want to have to work the amount of overtime that they've traditionally had to work in the past. So getting up to full staffing and keeping those people here and keeping those well-trained people here was important to them. Competitive compensation benefits, they want to be able to compare themselves to other agencies in the region. Specialty assignments. They wanted the opportunities for growth within their profession. And I think we all benefit as a city and as a community with the additional training that's required for some of these specialty assignments. And then also just work-life balance, being able to be at full staffing and allow these folks to have some time with their families rather than coming in on overtime, what was very important to them. So the major contract language changes, this is just economics. There's not a lot of language changes to the contract in terms of, like grievances or anything like that. We have good workable language. This is all about the economics and retaining our folks here. So we'll start with the cost of living adjustments. Monthly wages, we were proposing a 5% increase in 2025, 7 in 26 and 6 in 27, totaling an 18% over the course of the 3-year contract. This is very consistent with what we're seeing across all of our comparables and really across the state. AWC put out a thing today that said, over the last 5 years, the average increase in police officer compensation is 20%. So everybody's having to up their game to fund their officers. In section B, we did add a new classification. This is something that we probably won't use right away, but in a couple of years' time, when we have some more seasoned folks, we would like to implement the corporal position as a means to basically grow our next generation of supervisors, sergeants, lieutenants, that sort of thing. So this is an opportunity, again, giving people a little carrot to, continue their training and their knowledge and step up to the plate and be kind of that lead level right under the supervisory level. Specialty pay. We just made some changes to specialty pay to come in line with what other comparables. In the past, we had just done some sort of flat rates, like, $300 a month for field training officers, $175 for qualified firearms instructors, armors, range masters. And so everybody else or a lot of the others seem to be doing a percentage of their base pay. So this is what we've come to. We basically are right in the middle. of what everybody's doing. Some people are higher than us, some people are lower than us, depending on the specialty at hand. So you'll see what we're proposing as laid out here. The ones in yellow are actually new ones that we hadn't done before. That's drone operators. There's a certification process to become a drone operator that's pretty intense. Our behavioral health unit, we have some special behavior for that. That's been a tremendous program that we would like to continue well on in the future. The work from the public information officer, that would be compensation for the person that does such a wonderful job on our social media. Our police Facebook page puts out a lot of good community information. And then this is one of Chief Bechtel's priorities was setting up a traffic unit. Additional training and things are going to be required to really go out and do training, traffic emphasis, accident scene work, and that sort of thing. So that's what we're proposing there. There's no change. The detective language remains the same. Longevity pay. This was another thing that was very important to the guild members. We are, you can see what we're proposing there, 1.75% after 5 years, after 7 years, 2.0, 10 years, 2.25, and 12 years, 3. And you can see the number of officers that actually qualify. This would actually replace the retention pay that we were providing in previous contracts. And then we have the education incentive. These two are actually combined, so you can't get both. You would just get, sort of the higher of the two. So this is really geared towards those newer officers that haven't reached that 5-year mark yet. So at least it provides them something for their education. Deferred comp, no change for 2025. The proposal is to increase that to 4.25% in 2026 and 4.5% in 2027. It's currently at 4%, just as an FYI. VEBA contributions, they're at 90 right now. So raising that $5 per month in 25, another 5 in 26, another 5 in 27. Holidays. So at council's request, we kind of will remove some of the additional floating holidays that were out there as part of the contract. So now we have one floating holiday with another that can be earned through the wellness program. And that's similar to the language that you've seen in the other contracts that we've proposed to you of late. And you can see that we remove those other floating holidays, the yellow text there. Vacation accruals, no real big change here. We just added an hour going from 18 to 19 if you've been here more than 12 years. And that's a summary of the contract. There are a couple of little wording changes in there, but those were the major changes. So this is your first look. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to let me know. But the guild members did vote on their side and they approved the contract. So pending any desired changes, I will bring this back for the next council meeting for your approval.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions from Mark?
I did have one. There was the 3 officer mandate. Was it Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Something changed there.
Yeah, we backed that off because it really wasn't necessary anymore.
Just sort of declining.
Back in the old days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights were nuts in town with these huge, parties that, we'd have a couple officers on and you have a 200-person party. That's more than we can ask for our officers to try to keep order, but we're not seeing those anymore. Our biggest thing is making sure we have the mandatory, two-person minimum on staff at all time, because we don't want an officer out there by themselves. I'll just say with the types of crimes that we're seeing in Cheney, they have the potential to escalate to something that one person can't, one officer can't handle on their own. And with the staffing challenges at the county, we're not as apt to get mutual aid in a very timely fashion anymore like we used to be as well. So we have to be ready between us and support from Eastern to handle stuff in town.
Makes sense.
Anything else, Mark?
Yep. I like the steps thing in the contract. I thought that was really great. The only question I had is didn't look like in the contract that steps was defined anywhere. So I didn't know if that needed to be in the contract.
I can tell, we just always gone by practice. We could certainly add, what the criteria is in there to make it clearer. But everybody is has the understanding of how you get to the next thing, but we can certainly make that a little clearer.
Yeah, I just thought it'd be good to be in the contract.
Sure.
Second, the cashing out of vacation hours
Mhm.
per year. That seemed fairly significant
Yeah.
to us as a budget item.
Yeah,
If-
it could absolutely be. This is something that's become very, very common amongst police contracts. I will say that, as these officers earn more and more vacation over
Right.
the years, as it stands right now, they simply can't take it. We just can't, we can't allow them to take some of this stuff.
Mhm.
And so it's just sitting out there forever.
Mhm.
And so this is just an opportunity to kind of take that liability off the books, of all that compensation that's out there.
Okay. My other concern about it was I think it's really valuable to encourage officers to take vacation.
Yeah,
How will we balance
I
the
think,
ones that will say, I don't want to take vacation, I'd rather get $20,000 at the end of the year?
Yeah,
How
well,
are we gonna?
that's probably a conversation that either the chief, the next chief and the lieutenant will have with their staff. Because they
Okay,
do need to take time off.
right,
They absolutely do. If not, they're going to burn out.
right.
And I think a majority of them want to be able to take time off.
Yeah.
They don't want to get into this situation, but right now it's just a question of they have to.
Right.
They have to, to maintain the minimum staffing, keep our officers and community safe.
Right, good. And then I think last, how will this contract change the 2025 budget?
Well, that sort of remains to be seen, but I mean, I think we can accommodate a lot of it. There may be some operational cuts that we have to make in certain things, but we're going to manage it.
Okay. Do you have a number?
I don't have it off the top of my head. We just finished this thing last Thursday night. So I
Okay.
didn't have a chance to compute everything together, but I can come up with the
Yeah.
numbers for you.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, the other thing to remember too is, with some of the turnover and stuff we have some less experienced officers coming in at lower steps of the range.
Yeah. Was there any talk about making the $1,000 incentive a little bit more?
No, not really.
No? Okay,
No, that wasn't really much of a priority
Okay.
when it came to our negotiations themselves.
I felt like it's-
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think that, like I said before, our reputation as a department has increased significantly, and I think people want to be a part of it. People that are part of other communities or other agencies where their maybe officers aren't respected like they should be, and I think a lot of them are just tired of it. They want to come to a place, a community that respects their police, and I think that's what Cheney provides.
It's a really good contract. I like it.
Mhm.
And
We're certainly still kind of in the middle of the road. Our base pay is still below the average of all of our comparables, but I think with some of the specialty pay and that, we're right there where we probably need to be.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
How many officers do we currently have that are at that top step?
I don't
If
know
that's
how
what we're
many.
using to compare with other agencies.
Yeah, we just always use top step as kind of your max compensation. How many do we have at top step? Do you know off the top of your head? I can get that information for you.
And then the second part, where are we at in the accreditation process? And does that have any impact on people's willingness or like they're wanting to work for our?
I don't know if it has an impact on their willingness, but we are still, that is one of our goals is to get accredited. And I don't know if Chris wants to speak to that at all, but
Still in progress? Perfect.
yeah, we're basically just getting all of our stuff in order and making sure we're ready for an audit to come in. And so, per Chief Bechtel's conversations that we've had, we're right there. I mean, we have our I's dotted and T's crossed. We're just kind of doing a final once over, I think, to get fully ready for the audit. So we're successful.
Thanks. Go ahead, Paul.
Let's go ahead, we'll just go down. Okay. Looking at this, I know we want to stay competitive. The salary increases make a lot of sense to me. I like the incentives for longevity. One sentence in here kind of struck me. I had to read it twice, but the at-will detective role.
Mhm.
How come the maximum of 7 years?
You know, that's been the topic of a lot of discussion over the years. It used to be 3. In previous context, it was 3, and I actually wanted to see it go longer. Because it takes you a good couple years to get the training and expertise to be a detective. I think it from the guild standpoint, it was more about sort of providing other opportunities for officers that want to, take on that role. And I will say, if you're a detective for a while, you have to deal with some pretty nasty stuff. And there's a burnout factor in being a detective. And so, Chris, you might want to talk about that a little bit.
Want those people that are being sensitive criminal investigations to feel like they were stuck, and burn out and stuff like that. So that's why we did 7 years, to give them an opportunity to change course or to continue with their student go. We want to make sure that 7 years of investigating some pretty significant crime, we don't want them to feel like they're stuck.
So it's not implied, but it's for longevity. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was just thinking, enlighten me a little bit more on Article 7. We dealt with the staffing levels. In the past, there'd be a peak during playtime, university. Now you've just gone to, so you struck all that out.
Yeah.
Just as a mutual agreement.
Mhm.
And then with our minimum of 2, so I'm assuming when we adjust that, it would be adding extra patrol then. And then does that, then you go to Article 9A3, mandatory overtime. Is that when that comes into play where if they agreed that 2 is not gonna be enough because of the Thursday night, Friday night thing? And then we need to add an officer.
Yeah, it could be, and a lot of this is being dependent on maybe intel we have about something that's happening, or if it's a special event that's going on in town. If we've got, let's use maybe Mayfest as an example. If we know we're going to have a bunch of people in town, we may staff up for that. If there's who knows, a protest or something in town, and we know that has the potential to escalate to something, we want to reserve the right to staff up for that. So it's very situation specific.
Yeah. And that's somewhat self-explanatory. That was just, apparently we're just gonna leave it so that it's not for just Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We can do it anytime.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've always done that, over the years. We just didn't feel the need to have a minimum of 3 or 4, on these Thursday through Saturday nights, because the threat just isn't there anymore for these things to get out of these parties to get out of control.
Sure. But when you look at then, at section 9 and mandatory, so if we need to staff up one, this section would suggest or require that they would be paid double overtime.
Yeah. And this is, when we say mandatory, this is directed by, if we can't find somebody to come in that's willing to come in, the chief said, no, I need that 3rd officer, you're next on the list, you're coming in. That's when the double time comes in.
And there would be no reason to ever take overtime.
Could be. It could be. I mean, there,
Because then you're gonna just get ordered to do it.
but it also could be a situation where, maybe we've got people out on sick leave or vacation, and that's where, nobody wants to do it, but somebody's gonna have to do it. We haven't really found ourselves in that situation a lot. We can usually find somebody. However,
Yeah.
there's gonna come a point in time probably when,
It just seems like something that can be manipulated.
well, I
That
would,
was my question. If we want to staff up, and that's between the lieutenant,
Mhm.
and I'm assuming the chief.
Yeah.
And then that would be trigger double overtime, even if it was, do they have a cycle? Do they take turns type thing, or?
Chris, you want to talk about how you,
There's a roster.
Okay.
Based off of, so, or if somebody is not volunteering for overtime this week, let's say, then the next person goes to the top of this.
yeah, so we try to cycle through so we don't, lump all the overtime on one particular individual. You get first choice, and then if nobody chooses, then we have to kind of pick the next person up.
Generally, a lot of times it's those that are willing to do the double overtime or frequent overtime are also the ones requiring the cash out of the vacations.
Well, and that's, you know, we've seen that on the fire side of things.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. And then I understand, I'm just trying to get a little,
Yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming from.
I guess overall just, and I get the idea that we need to, you know, we do all of our contracts, we do all of our employee retention hiring based on imperatives. And I guess whined about this before where we get compared with other cities that have a whole lot different tax base. And I just see another time now where you look at the last 5 years, we got a 33% increase in base pay. Not including the bennies, which you have to have in order to stay competitive current. But with our limited resources, we, at some point, we're gonna keep that in mind that look for some other resources to keep up.
Yeah, and that's where we're hopeful that the state can provide some additional funding opportunities for us.
I'm not gonna
Hold your
lay
breath.
awake at night just all smiles on that one. But you're right, and that's the other thing we gotta look at is these traps, and I call them traps, so they dangle these funds.
Yeah.
There's one time,
Mhm.
and I would rather come up with our own means to do that. You and me could probably take it initially, but you gotta plan
Mhm.
that that's not gonna be.
Right.
Ongoing, so. we have to
Yeah, I mean,
plan.
that's why this $100 million is great, but it's such a short-term fix, and it's not a fix, it's a
Right,
Band-Aid.
Peanut butter pretty thin too.
Yeah.
I mean. All right, very good. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Anybody else? Thank you. We look forward to the final on our next
Yep,
meeting.
next council
Yep.
meeting.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, Todd, you're up. 25-2 or 028. This is the Mary Street Vacation Public Hearing. So I'm going to open this public hearing. Turn it over to Mr. Abelman.
Just stop sharing, Mark, and I don't have my share button here. Do I back on? Oh, here. Oh, there it is. Find that. We can. You can see that. Mary Street Vacation. We're gonna go through just kind of the public hearing process. I'll kind of fill you in on what we're looking at. I'm gonna provide application information, location of the, our vacation request, utility and access easements. Basically, we'll talk about right-of-way value, what that is, consideration for vacation ordinance. I'm not serving an ordinance tonight, but as we in your packets, if you so choose for staff to come back with an ordinance, we will serve it up at a later time to that end. We'll reserve some time for applicant comment if they're here tonight. The Gillinghams are back there. They're probably not going to speak on it, but if we have any questions or questions I can't answer, I will certainly turn around and ask them. So, and then any public comments that come out from there. So as we move forward, you can also ask questions along the way. Obviously received an application January 16th of 2025. On February 11th, 2025, we set the resolution for tonight. That's why we're having that hearing. Basically, the reason for vacation, it's the size and shape of Mary Street and a little bit of the excess right of way does not have a marketable value as an independent parcel. And the extra right of way value, Mary Street was kind of a platted street. But the extra right-of-way value was really just kind of handed to us when DOT just decided to take a look at their really wide right-of-way at that time, and then they just trimmed everything back, and then they just gave us that right-of-way, and it's based on that survey to that end, including a little pink area that's on the map that shows that we have an actual deeded title of about a 600 square foot triangle. The benefits for vacation, adjoining the vacated property to existing property for residential development is what it's proposed, will have a higher tax. So I kind of highlighted what the right of way looks like, and if I can get my pointer out. So you can kind of see it's highlighted in there, and down below this kind of the straight section, that's actually Mary Street in a plat. It's basically based southeast of this is 904. This is Mary Street going up to Second Street. And then this is all the additional right of way that was pretty much handed over to the city. As you can also see, there is a current gravel road access that kind of leads down to a neighboring property down here, and we can talk about the access in a little while. The current access is to serve other properties between Andrus and Columbia Street. Proposed site development includes a multifamily residential development with independent utility needs and common parking, and that is based on moving forward with the map amendment. We understand that is kind of in the proposed, but this is what they're proposing usage of that vacation area. Current access serving adjacent properties will need to maintain or improve alternative access. And the requirement for vacation would be reserve and access and utility easements over the vacated properties. So as this proposed development happens, we will have to sit down with the construction. We'll have to see where our water mains are, where our fire hydrants are, where our sewer runs, and develop easements. And if it's any of those easements cross any of these vacated, we'll have to reserve easements along that line. But early in the development, we just have right now just what we call a proposed site plan, nothing definite. Here's just a map that kind of cleans it up. And this property, Mr. Gillingham owns this property, which extends over into this property. And then this is just the corner piece of what we call the Mary Street vacation. So both properties on both sides. Mary Street doesn't really have an access to any of the property except for Mr. Gillingham. Talk about right-of-way value. Basically, if we were to move forward with an ordinance vacating the street, the mayor shall cause an appraisal to be made, and that appraisal can be done by any paid city staff, or it could be made up a committee of composed members of city council. Appraisals considered evidence of value provided by the person or entity petitioning for vacation, and any other evidence deemed necessary to establish the value of the property. The city council shall accept the appraisal or may direct an additional appraisal to be conducted. If this piece of property was very old and we didn't have any appraisal, we do have some data on recent sales and everything else. So that's in consideration on the value of property. And then I also just put the Mary Street and additional property is about 20,000 square foot. This just kind of out the subject property, which is owned by Mr. Gillingham, and then right down in here is that's that vacation or that Mary Street, and then that would kind of blend into the additional rent. This is the proposed development. You might have seen this on the other agenda for the zoning amendment. You can kind of see that property being utilized. That empty space right there is Mary Street. And this development sits back fairly far from the road just because of the additional right of way that you see. So with any ordinance, if there is a lot of conditions, some of the conditions we like to kind of embed it in the ordinance, and then also take into consideration that ordinance does not go in effect till all those conditions are met. So basically, the condition is a multifamily development approval. That's probably both in the zoning and also moving forward and taking a look at what Mr. Gillingham has in the construction and how he's going to lay that out. Required access and easement, not only for the easements to our utilities, but the easement to the neighboring property. The construction of the access or easement would be a portion of that. And then I always like to put a sunset in the ordinance. That way we're not hanging out indefinitely for an ordinance to enact. So typically what we like to put is about a 5-year on that. And that leaves it to the developer to act on it, do all those conditions to that end. Once all those conditions are met, come into basically to the finance department. And if there's appraisal fee on that, pay that fee. And then we go ahead and enact that ordinance, which transfer that property over. and that's based on the appraisal. So I'll pause right here and, like I say, I'm done with my presentation. You can ask me any questions you like. If the applicant, wishes to comment, he can do so. And then also we can open up for public comment. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So any questions for Todd? Go ahead. Dan.
So that vacated property, one, can you define what vacation means for those that aren't into property law?
Sure.
And then two, is that going to be used to facilitate additional units, or is it just going to be for additional like parking space and access?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's about 20,000 square foot. The way the development rolls out, it looks to be with additional parking, but I'm not too sure if they would be willing or looking at additional units in that area.
Yeah, so I don't think, it will, help out additional events really. I think it will additional parking. And then also, just kind of landscaping that corner, just kind of making it look so it's kind of one flowing. That's kind of where my head's at with it. I don't think it's gonna add any additional units to it.
As far as vacation goes, we always get a property through a plat process or this in case DOT had given us back to it. So it's a right of way. We usually have that right of way kind of earmarked for future development. You kind of see these roadblocks, so to speak, where Mary Street does not continue another plat. Most likely due to the railroad access, we see those lower streets that just go to nowhere. Those type of things kind of lay there for a long time. And if they're over, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, if they're over 25 years old, then we have a right to full appraisal on those properties to sell it to that end. And we go through that process. It's a public process to vacate it, which means basically vacate it and offer it to the adjoining property owners. Anybody that can petition vacation, if they can get more than 2/3 of the property owners on both sides to sign a petition. However, Mr. Gillingham owns both sides of that property. He owns basically 100% around it. So he's petitioned, and that's why we're here tonight. As a council, you can actually put through a petition if you wanted to vacate a certain area to vacate for.
And so vacating removes it from the public and turns it over to private.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
Yep.
And it was acquired back in the day, long time ago. The city of Cheney acquired that through Department of Transportation, right? DOT.
Back in the olden days, a couple gentlemen came and wanted us to vacate this, many years ago. And I think they were from, well, they're obviously a previous owner and I think they were from, Chihuahua. And, but they would not share with council what the plan was for it. And so it did not receive favorable approval. And so I'm really pleased to see that we have a concept in front of us and that we actually know what's going to happen. So I feel a lot more comfortable than I did back in the olden days.
It's a good question.
Yeah, question, Todd, thanks. Yeah, I, to me, it's right for vacation that is of no use to any of us and puts it back on the tax roll. And it's just a triangle piece of it. My question is, to the south, our good old fourplex on Columbia, do we still have a garbage truck going down that little trail, Todd? And
Yeah, I believe so, just because of this access actually goes through the property right in through here. And then there is an access off of Columbia Street, but
Right.
it's very, very steep.
it's too steep for a garbage truck.
Correct. Mhm.
So does the development, I mean, doesn't have to do with the vacation, but there's 3 properties there. I think the one is by easement for access. The others are off.
Yep.
One's fronting 904,
Yep.
the other one's Columbia.
So this large property right here, it is pretty much, it doesn't have any access except for this little tiny area right off the
Right,
railroad.
yeah,
And then this property has access right through here. This fourplex has a driveway right through here that continues right through here on up. So we're talking about this property. This property is pretty much, locked in. But it's one of those things where the owner owns.
Same
the adjacent-
ownership.
Yeah, yeah, it's the same ownership. So that one is just, somewhat laying out there. But it is bound by other pieces of property.
Yeah. I
So-
just didn't know whether we as the picking up the garbage, whether
Well,
if we're gonna be able to still use that or not.
yeah, I mean.
Not having to do with the vacation, but it's just.
Again, the ordinances of it would be the developer, would have to come up either, keep this easement in place or construct one that would basically serve this property. And that would be the condition of the ordinance,
In the what?
in the condition of the ordinance
For the vacation?
for the vacation.
I don't know how that would, I would see there's an argument for adverse possession or where they could probably petition since it's been there for beyond 10 years. But,
Yeah, we could reserve an easement too.
okay. I mean, it's just there's that blue fourplex and that goes straight down and our garbage trucks usually end up in the railroad right away in the winter. So we've used this other little incline from the north. Just, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the vacation at this point. I support the vacation. I think I don't know what they're gonna do with it's kind of a goofy little parking lot there to the south, if that would move it up and then add landscaping between that and other properties. Case, but be that as it may, I think it's right for vacation. That's it.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, Todd, I've got one. I'm assuming Andrus Road will become paved out to First there in the plan. My question is that intersection right there with First and Second coming off there is already a little hairy. How's that gonna work with all of the traffic coming onto it? And then the other option will be, how will they turn left there coming on to Andrus Road, like in the afternoon coming home? That could make that whole area pretty congested as well. Do we have a traffic plan for that?
Well, there was a traffic study in the original zoning that showed kind of the breakdown of how many people would be, kind of exiting 904 and exiting Cheney Spangle. And they kind of broke it up to, don't quote me on this, but it was over 90% that would be exit on an SR 904 and probably less onto Cheney Spangle Road.
Spokane Road. Gee, Spokane.
Road, thank you.
Yeah, that's my concern, is that intersection's already a little congested. You start adding to it. it
That is
could get
true.
challenging.
And into consideration, when you do a traffic study for, residential units, we have people that will probably, leave to go to work or go to class and come back, compared to what we have when we put in like a Bi-Mart or a grocery store. That access is very busy. So we tend to try to manage it the best we can. So yeah, there could be some challenges around that corner, but as of right now, kind of ending that center turn lane into that transition to that end, but it seems to be far enough where there can still be some room to that.
One more. With that same kind of thing in mind, because yeah, that that whole area, like we've seen several accidents there. And it's not a very great spot for pedestrians. And if we're bringing in high density housing, which we definitely need, like I'm all for that. Do we have a plan or concepts of a plan for pedestrian safety in those areas, especially because 904, we're kind of limited on what we can do?
Yeah, I mean, 904, we are limited on what we can do, and anything that we try to accommodate has to be through Washington Department. Basically, we do have a full stoplight up on Cheney Spokane Road to kind of cross the road, and that as we move further north, we're in discussions right now about some type of crosswalk safety, both on College Hill and then also as you move up to Simpson Parkway. So I would say that conversation would be whether a crosswalk would be warranted there or not. If it's, we kind of like to hit it at intersections. Four-leg intersections are better than Ts, but yeah, with DOT standards, sometimes the length where you can cross gets fairly long, to that end. Typically, they like to do a study to see how many people are crossing at that particular one. And if there's a lot there, then that warrants, it's like with anything else with traffic lights or traffic circles, they want warrants and data to that end. So it's too early to tell. Our street improvement would allow sidewalks to come up to the street and continue on one side of the street until they can safely cross another crosswalk. They may have to walk up a block to the push button crosswalk to cross, or they can travel along this road until they feel we have another crosswalk in that area. So yeah, it's just one of those things where we start to plan. As soon as they start laying out the development, we can take a look at, do we make this street or do we make maybe this intersection a right in, right out only to avoid maybe some of this. If we make it in one side, then open up the other end. Do we change the behavior to everybody's going? So those are the things that we can kind of have discussion as we get the development of Andrews Road.
I just remembered another one we had based on our conversation last time about a bus stop. Because it's housing, will it require us to have a closer bus stop to it?
Well, right down here on Columbia
Yeah.
Street, if I remember right, there is a bus stop here. And obviously we do work with STA. If they start seeing this increased ridership, sometimes they'll contact us. They may want to move up to that. They may want to transition where they run down Andrews Road, but I think it really depends on if they start seeing that ridership, then they pretty much adjust their bus stop.
Okay.
Thank you. Does the applicant have any comments to provide to council?
Say that might be relevant to the pedestrians, crosswalking and stuff like that. We had talked about doing some pedestrian walkways that lead straight to the shopping center potentially, which would incentivize people to kind of stop light rather than just cross the street. That's not for certain or not, but definitely would be a perk. There would be having kind of ways to access or retail. Also incentivize.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so did you have anything else to add, Todd? Any other questions from council? This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open it up to the public if they have any comments on this vacation of Mary Street applicant. Seeing none here, anybody joining us virtually that wishes to comment on the vacation of Mary Street? Seeing none. Going once, going twice. Anything else, Todd? You're good?
I think we're good.
Everybody good here? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close this public hearing and we don't have any action on this. though,
We
do
just have a consideration. Would you, obviously from the conversations and everything, want me to serve up an ordinance?
Oh, okay.
You want
I
a
see.
motion?
Yeah, might as well dig them up.
I'll move to have it brought for the council action, the vacation.
Second.
Think you have a motion to second for Todd to bring this back to council for further consideration. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Todd. Appreciate that. Resolutions. Mark, you're gonna take this one? Resolution F-341, the flock camera purchase. Go ahead.
Yes, bringing this back for your consideration. Council had asked, I had some questions and we did some research regarding the agreement with the Flock folks for the cameras. Regarding the sort of privacy concerns and the selling of some of the video and data, Flock simply does not sell their data. They were very clear that the only people that have access are law enforcement related folks. They don't sell this out to whoever wants to show their footage or whatever. There was some question on the retention of the videos. By default, that's 30 days. It's actually stored in the cloud, very secure. It meets all the CJIS certifications for security. So those were the main two questions. I know this afternoon, Councilmember Bealock contacted Acting Chief Oaks with some additional concerns regarding the length of the that the data is retained, and then also some concerns with the Fourth Amendment. We had Mr. Capon do a little research on the Fourth Amendment issue. Mike, do you want to just talk briefly about that?
Sure, just brief, there is pending litigation right now. There are three federal courts of appeals who have looked at this issue and found no Fourth Amendment violation. It's kind of technology, but what the Ninth Circuit decides to do or the Second Circuit decides to do, I'm not going to predict, but I would say as of right now, the three courts of appeals and no privacy interest in license plates and things like that that are public facing.
We also did reach out, Chris and I reached out to Flock and spoke with them, one of their representatives, about kind of best practices for the data retention. And, you know, they have 5,000 customers worldwide, or well, United States wide. And a huge majority use that sort of default 30 days. And the reason they do that is this is a tool for law enforcement to investigate crimes. And not every crime is reported in a timely fashion. They gave us two examples on our call. A lot of times if there's a sexual assault, that's such an emotional situation, that may take days to process. And so 30 days at least gives the police the opportunity to look back that much more time to try to, bring I'll just say a perpetrator to justice. On the more property side of things, I said, if somebody's on vacation, for example, and they come home and find that their home's been burglarized, the more time you have to look back, the more likelihood that you might get some clues as to, who may have been involved in it. And so we certainly took that information into consideration. And then we also looked at what the rest of the agencies are doing in the region, and everybody seems to fall into that 30-day default. Talked to Chief Richmond, Airway Heights, they use it. Liberty Lake uses it. Chris actually called down to the real-time center, and this is pretty much the standard for the region. Again, this needs to be a tool for our officers. I think this system makes our community safer. It is strictly looking at license plates. This doesn't have facial recognition technology or anything like that. It's just looking for hits in the system based on law enforcement reasons to look for, these certain license plates. So, if somebody is, they've got a license plate of a car that was involved in a crime of some sort somewhere, it comes into town, it'll ping our officers, hey, be on the lookout. I mean, and that's a good thing. That's a proactive way to do policing in town. I think this is a good thing. I certainly understand the concerns with privacy, but you have to understand that these are trusted folks that are going to be using this system. These are our police officers that are held to a very high standard, and they will only use this for law enforcement purposes. So with that, I'll certainly take any questions, or if you have any questions on the actual operation of it, Mr. Oakes can answer those as well.
A couple things. So it specifically states that they will anonymize the data. It's not just license plates. We're also asking for the vehicle fingerprint, which means that we're taking images of the entire vehicle, potentially whoever's in the vehicle too. I understand there's no facial recognition, but we're now retaining for 30 days everybody who is coming through. You're right. There is no expectation of privacy when you're in public spaces, but there also isn't an expectation that our movements are being tracked. This is mass data collection. So even if they anonymize our data, there is still a potential risk for our citizens to have their data be misused. Yes, our law enforcement officers would have access to this, but once they anonymize that data, they can share that with other third parties. It's in their terms and conditions. So that was why I highly suggest we adopt maybe not even like the best practices that were proposed by the ACLU, but the better practices. They seem like a nice compromise between you being able to do your job effectively, utilize this resource effectively, while still maintaining that level of trust that you guys have worked really hard to build over the last couple of years.
What in your mind would be a reasonable amount of time?
3 days.
That seems like an awful short window to look back.
Not really, because we're assuming at 30 days that we are assuming that everybody that comes through our town is potentially a perpetrator and potentially a criminal. That's what's being assumed when we're saying that we need to be able to look back 30 days. If somebody's coming into our town and committing crimes, they're probably passing by those cameras multiple times. throughout the course of a week or a month. And we would have those hits to begin with. We're not just assuming that over the course of 30 days, anybody coming through our town, whether it's to work here, go to school here, play here, buy here, it has the potential to erode that trust that you guys have worked really hard to build, because now you're not saying that you don't trust the citizens. That's part of what that is. So making sure that the retention period, and even if 3 days, fine, 7 days, it's an arbitrary number at this point. 30 days just seems a little excessive and runs that risk, which is the whole point of that lawsuit, is that that 30-day retention period is where you start to get into that gray area with potential Fourth Amendment violations. Anything I have suggested and I sent forth to Lieutenant as well as I believe was forwarded to you. These are just ways that we can get ahead of that so that we can still utilize this service in a way that is effective for crime solving, because it's not going to prevent crime, but it'll help us solve things faster. It just seems like it's a nice compromise. We get a little more control and have a little bit more say as to who has access outside of our region. Because as you mentioned, they do have 5,000 customers across the nation.
Yep.
We don't need about 4,900 of those having access to our information. There's no need. They can go through a subpoena if they need it. So we don't really get a whole lot of say, especially once they anonymize that data. It specifically says in there that they can use it for other purposes. So having that specified in the contract protects us and potentially limits any future litigation that could come at the city.
Well, I do think that the block committed to working with us, you know, on things, and we can set up via policy who we share our data with.
Correct.
And they said they work with us on that. And so that's a conversation we can certainly continue to have. My biggest thing is, you know, 30 days seems like, I know it seems like a lot, but it also, I think, provides the best opportunity for our police officers to investigate crimes. That's my opinion. I'll invite Chris up to speak to the operational side, because I certainly am not going to be using this thing, but he will.
And I guess just to answer your question on the 30 days is, like we spoke earlier. After we spoke, I spoke with my detectives to kind of see what their feel would be on 30 days or 3 days. They're of the opinion that 30 days gives them enough time to research, you know, criminal activity that gets reported late. Again, like some of our sensitive in nature crimes may not go reported for, you know, several weeks sometimes. It just depends on the crime, right? It depends on what the victim's willing to do. They recommend 30 days. Real Time said everybody, industry standards, 30 days in the region. So that's kind of where they're at. Any questions on that?
Again, feel like there's too much of a gray area and wiggle room for having it be for 30 days.
Right.
Yes, I understand that some crimes don't necessarily get reported in a timely fashion, but then again, having their license plate number to go off doesn't necessarily solve that crime either.
Sure.
Like a vehicle registered to that person doesn't necessarily have to be driven by that person.
We just want to use every tool at our disposal to try to, you know, solve these crimes.
And
So,
I am here to represent the best interests of the citizens as well. And so making sure that we have that trust intact
Mhm.
is huge and makes your life easier as well.
for sure.
So just making sure that we can compromise on these things, I feel is the best step forward.
Yeah, Your Honor, thank you.
If I can, my name is Calvin. I'm one of the account executives at Flock Safety. I've been working with Lieutenant Oakes and Chief Bechtold. If I could speak to it right now, or is there a better time?
This is not the time for
This-
public comment.
No,
My apologies.
Yep. Go ahead, Vince.
Thank you, Your Honor. At our last council meeting, we deferred this item to look into the private sale of this. And I definitely read the contract, reread the contract. It's very explicit in section 4.1 and 4.3 that there is no sale of any of this information.
But the
So there-
anonymized data.
Let me,
Just
let me,
wait till
I
she
got
speaks.
the floor, excuse me. There is no private sale of this information. This information is exclusively for our police officers and other police officers around the region. To me, this is a excellent tool. I do not want to compromise any part of the tool for our citizens or our police officers. It doesn't make sense. And what I mean, and I'll go a little further than that. If 30 days is the standard and every other police officer that's using or has access to Flock is 30 days and somehow we have some arbitrary 7 days or 14 days, we're limiting our police officers. We're limiting that information. We're limiting their ability to keep our community safe. I don't stand for it. And for that reason, I would make a motion to approve F-341.
Do you have any other comments? Go
I
ahead.
just had a quick question. I remember us talking about this in public safety and I asked Chief Bechtel this as well. And I think he told us that at 30 days, the information is deleted.
It
Is that correct? That's what I thought. Okay.
The only time it's not is that it's involved in a crime, it's been flagged, or we need to retain this information.
Well, yeah, of course, because you need to use
Yeah,
it to
but
solve the
other than
crime.
that, at 30
But other
days,
than that, after 30 days, it's
it's
all deleted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on this side? Comments, questions here?
Your Honor,
I do have a motion. I have a motion on the table.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve resolution F-341, the flock camera purchase. Any final comments, questions? Becky? Anybody else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Ayes have it. Thank you. Resolution F-341 passes. And I appreciate the discussion on this, for sure. Okay, let me see, who's doing this? Todd, the resolution F-343 SRTC grant application.
Yep, we were notified that SRTC has got a call for projects and we'd like to submit an application to SRTC. And in looking at our next arterial that should get some attention, that would be Salnave Street from SR 904 all the way up to Preston. So application, I believe, is due first part of April. And just asking for permission to have the mayor sign the application.
Thank you, Todd.
Happy to answer any questions.
SRTC's been a really good partner of ours. Thanks. Any questions for Todd on this?
Just a comment.
Yes, please.
We're competing with all of Spokane County. 24 million is not very much. It might seem a lot.
We can,
I would-
we can get a little bit of it. That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean,
Just a
it's
little.
not a for sure thing. But if we don't apply, we know we won't get it.
Right.
So with that, I'll move for passage of resolution F-343.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve resolution F-343, the grant application from SRTC. Any following questions or comments for Todd? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. Resolution F-343 passes. Mark's going to take, unfortunately, Mr. Marks isn't feeling under the weather, so Mark's going to take this one, resolution F-345, the Four Lake Substation Construction Agreement Amendment 1. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, we've talked about this for a couple of years now. This is a needed reliability upgrade at our Four Lakes substation. This is in the event that there needs to be maintenance or repairs out there. There's a bypass that's installed so we don't lose power to the community. What this amendment does is it replaces the milestones table that you see on the first page of the amendment, just setting the timeline. As you can see here, the construction completion and model updates to RC West is by May 15th and the cutover testing commissioning by June 15th. That's again, assuming everything kind of goes to plan and there's not disruptions in, the construction and repair process. So really it's just changing the dates and setting the project cost estimate deposit of our share of $187,500 to Inland, to Avista as of March 15th.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions for Mark on this? Just adjusting the milestones table. Go
Just
ahead,
one.
Mark.
I don't know if you'll know the answer, but maybe Todd will. Was just wondering if we need to think a little bit proactively and ahead for that new KV line for EW that might be a possibility. Would there be something we would want to put in this contract that would make it more economical, that we could do that all at once? And that would make that KV line
That's a good
a
question
possibility.
that I really don't have good
Yeah,
answer
I didn't
to.
think you, but I don't know.
Steve was on here. I don't know if he's still on here or not.
No, I'm here. Mark, I can answer that. I brought that up with Inland and Avista And I told him about Eastern Washington University's decarbonization project and the 115 line, and would that impact this build at the bypass at the substation, or can we incorporate it? And they said, no, it's not a problem. Once the bypass is built, we can still build that 115 line, but neither of those two have an interest in supporting that, because it doesn't supply their customers. It's so building it, no impact on the 115. The 115 is between Eastern and the city on its own accord. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but it presents a bigger one. If they're not willing to sustain it, then who gives them power?
Well, that's it.
That's between Eastern and whoever.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. I mean, Eastern's gonna be on the hook for this build out.
All right.
This is their project.
All right.
So Your Honor, this has
On our
been in
citizens.
Public Works Committee, we support where we're at in cahoots with Vista and Inland on being able to have our substation separated when need be, and working with them, so I would support this. It's presented.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion for approval of
Second.
Thank you. Evan.
345.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve resolution F 345, the amendment to the Four Lake Substation contract or construction agreement. Any final questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you, Mark. Resolution F 345 passes, and resolution F 346, the fiber optic cable replacement project contract award. Go ahead.
Squirrels continue to be the bane of the existence of the public power and now telecommunications fiber industry. Squirrel ate through the fiber between F and G Street. We need to get it repaired. We have an agreement with 0DB for on-call fiber optic services. You'll see here, there's a cost estimate of $14,307. That's a breakdown of what that cost entails on the last page of the document. Yeah, we gotta get this fixed. And maybe eradicate some squirrels in town. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Stop putting peanut butter on the fiber.
You know, it was interesting when we were doing this solar array install. There is actually something in the coating around some of the cables. Todd, we learned this, that is actually attracts varmints. Didn't know that. But
They need to change that.
Rabbit have you?
no, I have not. I have
You
not.
chew through everything.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, we'd like to get this thing repaired and make sure we get our fiber, keep it intact.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Any questions for Mark on this repair job, fiber optic?
I would move for passage of resolution F 346 if no one has any questions.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve resolution F 346, awarding the contract for fiber optic cable replacement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you, Mark. Resolution
Thank
F 346 passes. Moving on to our ordinance Y 84. We've already had one read, and this is a second read for the comprehensive plan and zoning map amendment. Go ahead, Todd.
And again, we had that last council meeting, we had the first reading, and as of today, I have not received any comments. So
Nope. So
up for your consideration, whether you want to do the second or second.
any questions on? Yeah, nothing's changed since the last time this was presented.
Has any significant issues? I would move for the second reading, ordinance Y 84, and the second be considered the third. And it be provided to us in title and summary form only. And for final passage.
Second.
Thank you. A motion and second for the second reading of ordinance Y 84, and the second be considered the third, and then it be placed before you in title and summary form only for final passage. Any questions or comments before we vote? Good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Go ahead, Shelley.
Ordinance number Y 84, an ordinance amending the comprehensive plan map and zoning map establishing high-density multifamily residential R-3H on land located between the F&M Shopping Center and railroad tracks, providing for other matters related thereto, and setting an effective date.
Thank you, Shelley. Councilmember Overhauser. Councilmember Schmidt.
Aye.
Councilmember Bartels.
Aye.
Councilmember Belak.
Aye.
Councilmember Nazaro.
Aye.
And Councilmember Postuma.
Aye.
Thank you. Ordinance Y 84 passes. And that concludes our action items. Mark, do we have any staff reports for this evening?
Just very quick, kind of update on the legislative session. Tomorrow is kind of a big day. It's kind of the cutoff for bills to get out of their particular house of origin. So by tomorrow, we'll kind of know what's up for further consideration as those bills go over to the other chamber. And I think April 2nd is the next date for bills to be, sort of cut off. So we'll see what happens. There's still a lot of bills out there, some good ones, some not so good ones for cities, and we just continue to monitor. And Deborah's doing a fantastic job keeping us informed on the things that are happening and proposed amendments and, what we think about them and providing comments on our behalf. So very, very pleased with the work that she is doing over there on behalf of Cheney. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Mark. Well, for mine, I forgot to mention last time that the city of Cheney once again was awarded the Commute Trip Silver Employer Champion Award, thanks to Craig Wall for his many, many, many years of being on that CTR team. Once again, we did our part to get the 2024 award, so good on Craig. And I just want to say I appreciate the discussion during this agenda and the items that we have. And I appreciate the thoughtfulness going into the decisions that we make up here. So thank you. Teresa.
Chief Oaks, if you could visit with Cindy about the financing on your item, there was a little confusion.
I do have a little update information. So it's actually 28,200 for 2025, 24,000 for 2026.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
I looked it up.
Resolved. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Teresa. Paul.
Thursday morning, 7 a.m. We got public works. We're good. I don't know if Steve will be healed up then or not. We'll run with that. That's all I have.
Thanks. Thanks.
Be at Public Works. Todd, is there any way you can give just a very high level overview of the flushing?
Yeah, we started flushing here a couple of weeks ago, I think, or just a week ago. But anyway, flushing the central section of town, what we call section 1. We're trying to basically what we create is a single flow of that reservoir down. So I think last time they were right around the North 4th, North 3rd, and North 2nd in that central section of town. You'll see them kind of flushing. If any one of you would like to go out and spend a little time to see what it's like, certainly give me a call. I'll track them down. It's when they start flushing, the water does not look the greatest, and it tends to clear up within a certain amount of time. Obviously, we are scouring what sediment is laying at the bottom of that line by opening those fire hydrants up and letting that full capacity of those pipes open up. So we see that, and then we clear them up, and then we move on to the next fire hydrant. So right now, we're hopefully anticipating that we can get section 1 done towards maybe the end of March or the beginning of April. What I've been reported to is each fire hydrant's taken about 20-25 minutes on average. No real long one like we've had in the past where we ran one for over 8 hours. So we're able to shut it down and move on to the next fire hydrant about a half hour. So.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good. Jack.
Spring sports are well underway, so make sure you're out there supporting your Cheney Blackhawks as well as your Eagles and all the wonderful Parks and Rec sports programs that are kicking off for all of our younger folks.
Thanks, Jack. Jason.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Be kind.
Rewind. Thanks, Mark. Huh?
You looking at me?
No, I wasn't looking at anybody. I was looking at all of us.
Well, that concludes our meeting. Yes. Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.